Bordeaux is a remarkably diverse wine region, and there is perhaps no better place on earth to enjoy wine. It's been a part of the culture here for centuries. However, for many of us, the fundamentals of wine and how to best enjoy it remain a bit of a mystery.
We're here with Susie Barry, who's a renowned master of wine, and is going to tell us a little bit about the basics of wine, starting from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So we're going to open the bottle first of all.
With a bottle opener that you called.
I call this a waiter's friend, yes. There are so many different corkscrews on the market, but this is probably what a waiter would normally use, largely because they can carry it easily in their apron. So it's a very simple way of opening a bottle.
And it has one of those little levers that gives
It does. So what you do is you twist the cork in, and then there are two little points for the cork as you get it out, and there we are.
Yeah. And that's a real cork.
Yes, there are all sorts of different stoppers on the market, different types of cork, plastic corks, agglomerate corks, screw caps.
So you've opened the bottle. Should we smell the cork?
There's no point in smelling the cork. It looks nice, it's quite fun, but that's not really going to tell you anything at all.
So when they say a wine is corked, what does that actually mean then?
So some people think that if you see bits of cork floating around in a glass of wine that it's corked. That's not a corked wine, that's just been opened badly. When a wine's corked, what's happened is that the wine in the bottle has been tainted, contaminated by a tainted cork, and it's going to smell kind of musty, mouldy, and when you taste it, the fruit in the wine is kind of suppressed, and then the sign of a fine wine is that it has a really long finish and it will be shortened.
And how do you properly pour a glass of wine?
Well, it's really simple. You just get your bottle. It's really good to have one of these drip stops. It's just a disc that you swirl around and pop into the bottle and then just pour. And the main thing is not to pour too much into a glass of wine. You don't want to be pouring it right up to the top. You want to pour it about a third full, and that's perfect for tasting the wine. So then you've got your glass of wine. We want to taste it. Now, wine tasting isn't complicated, it's not difficult. In fact, it should be a lot of fun. And the most important thing is to just keep it simple. We stop, we have a look, we have a sniff, we taste, and hopefully we enjoy it. So the first thing we do is stop. Most people are really busy, rushing around. You grab a glass of wine and you just knock it back. Don't think about it. This wine is going to give so much more back to you if you take a breath and give it your full concentration. So we stop and think about the wine that we're going to taste. We then have a look at it, and the main reason that the first reason you're looking at it is to make sure there are no bits floating around in it. You want it to be clear, bright, not hazy or cloudy, and something that really looks appetizing.
And when you're holding your glass, you hold it one way for tasting and one way for drinking?
Normally for drinking, particularly a white wine, we want to hold it by the stem and let it stay as cool as possible. So we've got our wine in the glass, we've had a look at it. The next thing we want to do is to smell it. But in order to smell it, we want as much aroma to come out of the glass, and the way to do that is to swirl it and get the oxygen in and all the aromas out. Now, swirling can be a messy business.
This is a half
if you feel
glass.
if you feel non-confident, pop it on a table and swirl it on the table. So that's much simple.
Yeah.
That's the simplest way to do it. And then take a really nice sniff of the wine. So what you're doing is you've let all that air in and all the aromas out. But equally, this wine is not bursting out of the glass. And New World wines, and New World countries, those wines tend generally to burst out of the glass. We've given it a swirl, we've had a sniff, we've had a look at it, we're going to taste it. But when you taste it, what I want you to do is, you can just try sipping it and swallow it, or spit if you want to. But if you do that, you're not going to get the best out of the wine. The best thing to do is take a really nice big mouthful, or reasonable sized mouthful, swirl it all around your mouth, treat it a bit like a mouthwash. Get it into every little corner of your mouth. And then if you can, try sucking it back through your teeth to let some more air into it. If it's a sweet wine, you'll detect it on the tip of your tongue. That's where you get sweetness. And then at the back, any bitterness you'll detect right at the back of your tongue. But just remember not to just sip and swallow. Try and get it into your mouth and around your mouth a little bit.
And how do you decide what wine goes with which food? I mean, traditionally, I guess we've thought that white wines go with fish and red wines go with meat. In Norway, where I'm from, we always we break that rule when it comes to cod. We always have red wine with fish. But is that sort of, are there rules?
I think I would say there are no hard and fast rules. What you need to do is to keep an open mind and to be prepared to experiment. It's so important to try different things with different foods with different wines. But there are a few rules that you could think about, a few tips that you could bear in mind. And the first one is to do, it's food and wine, think flavour and weight. So flavour is very different to weight. Flavour is, you might have something that's very lightweight, something like maybe fresh ginger or green peppers, but they've got masses of flavour. Equally, something with lots of weight, in terms of food that might be boiled rice or potatoes, very heavy, but they're not actually very flavoursome. So what we're looking for in a wine is that it's going to match, in terms of weight and flavour, the food. So for example, you've got a big meaty beef casserole, lots of flavour. You want a good, big, chunky red wine, maybe a Barossa Shiraz or a Chateauneuf du Pape. If you've got fish, so something like your cod, yes, have it with red wine, but you probably don't want to be drinking it with a Barossa Shiraz. You probably want a nice light Gamay or Pinot Noir, something gentle, soft, maybe something that can be served slightly cool as well.
And spicy foods like Indian and Chinese.
Spicy suit a bit of sugar. The great thing about sugar is it will temper the spice. So if you are having not heavily spiced food, that's just difficult generally to match to any wine, but if you've got something with some light spice, say a coconut curry, just gently, like a Thai kind of dish, you want either an off-dry white or even a fruity rosé, a really good fruity rosé, and that sweetness just softens the spice and balances it. The other thing that sweetness does is it balances saltiness, and an absolutely classic food match is Sauterne with blue cheese, because blue cheese is very salty. The other thing to think about with sweetness in wine is you then need good acidity in the wine as well, because otherwise the wine is going to seem cloying. There are certain food and wine matchings that are just classics, you know, Rioja and lamb, Sancerre and goat's cheese, you know, and as we've said, Sauterne and blue cheese.
Yes. And what are the ideal storage conditions for wine?
Well, the ideal storage condition for any bottle of wine really would be somewhere dark, cool, something about sort of 10 to 13 degrees C or 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit is perfect. But anything between about 7 and 18, so 45 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, is absolutely fine as long as it stays constant.
How do you choose the right wine?
It's really difficult. I mean, a lot of people do go on the label and, you know, sometimes you have nothing more to go on. I think what you've got to try and do is build up your own bank of knowledge about wines. At the end of the day, it's not about what I like, it's about what you like. So once you know your own personal taste, you can start then experimenting within countries and grape varieties. But I think, you know, so many people, the only thing they have to go on is the label.
Yes.
And that's absolutely fine. You know, why not choose a wine that you think looks nice?
Yes.
It may well taste delicious as well.
Bordeaux consistently delivers some of the world's best red and white wines, with the reds being perennial favourites. Here, the most prestigious wines take years of aging to be ready, and younger wines must be handled with care.
We have opened a bottle of the vintage 2007, which is still a little young for Margaux, for Médoc Grand Cru Classé. We usually advise you to wait 10 years before you open a bottle. So for those young wines, we would recommend you to decant. And ideally for a young wine, we would use a decanter which has a very flat base. So there will be a maximum of surface of wine in contact with the oxygen.
I thought that you only decanted really old wines.
Yes, you would decant old wines, but then you would use a different shape decanter, a high one, and you would decant just 15 or 20 minutes before serving.
For the old ones?
Yes. Young wine you would want to oxygenate. So you take this flat base and let's say 2 or 3 hours before service, you would open the bottle and pour it very gently, very slowly, in the decanter. You see the wine is flowing all around the glass and that gives the maximum oxygenation because there's a large surface of wine in contact with the air.
With air. So we've now let it oxygenate.
Yes.
Do we shake it or then we just let it stand?
No, I think it's better we do that in the glass. You see here it's a universal size glass. It could be used for white or red, but there's this little break here, so there is again a maximum of surface of wine in contact with the air.
And it's always sort of a tulip-shaped top, right? It's never an open top to the wine glasses, because I'm from Norway and I have some fine old wine glasses from my grandmother, and they sort of bend outwards, but that's wrong, I understand.
It's better if you really want to enjoy the flavors to have a neck which is not as large as the oxygenation, because then all the flavors will be in the glass.
Right.
And usually what we do is we serve on this level, so you have approximately 1/3 of the glass which is filled with the wine, and 2/3 where you have the flavors develop. When you have a first smell on the glass, you have the most volatile flavors which come out. And when it's a young wine, it's usually flavors which are coming from the aging with the oak. So there could be interesting flavors, but I think they would be even more interesting with a little oxygenation. So when you swirl the wine like that, there is an invisible fog forming above the wine. And then when you smell, the less volatile flavors will be onto this little fog, and you'll be able to smell them better.
On the second one?
Yes, so for this wine, for example, the first smell was a little oaky, a little spicy. It smelled a bit like vanilla, but as we gave it a little oxygenation, it has gotten a little fruitier. And so it's like you're projecting the wine a few years later.
And the other thing you look for is what do you call the legs?
Yes,
on the side of the glass?
Well, you want to look for many different things that will give you indications as to the age of the wine, its structure, its richness, and maybe its origin if it's a blind tasting. So the first examination is the visual examination, where you look at the color, so the reflection. So you want a source of light. For example, here we have the table, and you see it's a very dark color, which is very common in Bordeaux, where we use dominant Cabernet Sauvignon in the area of Médoc. So Cabernet is very dense. Then we look at the little rim which forms on the outside of the disc when you incline slightly the glass. And this little rim here, you see, it's not very thick, it's quite thin, so it's a sign of a quite young wine.
And not too much sugar, I guess, right?
No. Well, in red wine, well, that would be the legs giving you more information as to the structure of the wine. So you see here, the legs take quite a long time to form. It's an indication that the wine was aged with a quite high proportion of new oak. If it had been aged in stainless steel, probably the legs would fall much quicker. But in reality, I don't think you need to go too far away in the analyze when you're tasting, because for some people they will lose part of the pleasure. The most important is to see if you like the wine, and that's why it's very important to drink it in good conditions. And strong wines like those of Médoc or Saint-Émilion, they're not very easy to taste just like this, because when we make them, we think of how they're going to balance with the food. So it's very important also to have a little knowledge about the wine and food pairings if you really want to appreciate the wine the best.
Okay, so that's our red wine. And then you also produce white wines
wine,
here.
yes.
And for that we have a different glass.
Yes, we usually want a smaller glass for the white. This shape of glass is for fruity wines. So the shape was elaborated so the fruitiness would be enhanced. So just like for the other wines, the tasting usually goes 3 steps, with the visual examination, olfactive examination, and gustatory examination. So we could of course have a first look at the color, and when you look through the light, you see it's a quite light yellow with some green shades. We'll get a little more gold as the wine ages, but not at this point. Then again, we could look at the way the tears, the legs forms on the glass. Here you see they may take a very long time before they start coming down.
I don't even see a leg yet.
Yeah. That's
what does that
because
mean?
the legs have to do with the alcohol and the glycerol, but the way they fall down also has to do with the type of aging. And this white was aged in new oak, and 30% of new oak for about 8 months. And the aging in the oak makes the wines a little richer, and that's why also the legs take much longer to form. This is a blend of Sauvignon and Semillon, which are the most important varieties which we use for white wines in Bordeaux. And typical flavors from the Sauvignon is citruses. So you have a bit of lemon, yellow lemon, a bit of grapefruit. But we also use here 40% of Semillon, which gives a bit more exotic flavors. I personally also have a little pineapple on this wine, and it will become even more important as the wine ages.
In addition to Bordeaux's main wines, there are also lovely, lesser-known, lighter wine types, a couple of which might just make your favourites list.
I just discovered a new wine the other day, and it's called Clairette.
Clairé, yeah.
Clairette. And it's not quite a claret as people know it in the UK. What is a Clairette?
Clairé is a light red wine, in fact, and this has got to do with the process. That is the first step of the vinification, which is called maceration. You leave the juice in contact with the skins for a longer time to get a clairé rather than a rosé, for example. And if you leave it even longer, then it's going to be a red wine.
So in stages, rosé is the lightest,
Yes.
clairé is the next,
Yes.
and then it's a red wine. Yeah. So this is a typical clairé.
It is.
Yeah, clairets have been around for a long time. It's not a new
Yes.
wine at all.
No,
right?
no. It's a very classic wine from Bordeaux.
And how do you drink it? With when and with what type of foods?
You drink it with usually more during the summer, of course, but you can drink it all along the year. You drink it with barbecue, with salads. Usually it's picnics. You know, it's more outside wine rather than winter wine.
It's a lighter red, but it's not quite
It
as
is,
light
yes.
as rosé. So let's move on to the rosé then.
Rosé in Bordeaux is made with red grapes, mainly with Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon. Usually it's a blend, like every Bordeaux wine.
So let's have a taste of this rosé.
You look for the color,
Yeah?
so you can see when you look at this one that it's a young
Very
wine
light.
because the color is very light.
This is lighter than the traditional rosé that I'm used to, at least. À votre santé.
À votre santé. Cheers.
Cheers.
For an entirely different type of taste, there's nothing quite like the wines of Sauternes, which come from grapes that have been exposed longer to the elements of nature.
What is it in the process of making Sauternes wine that makes it sweet?
It's a mold called botrytis. This mold is able to attack the normal healthy fruit, and it's only on the skins, and it's never inside the berry itself. With that transformation, then the skin is permeable, and with the good sunshine on the afternoon, then the water is evaporating from the pulp, and it concentrates, and it makes it so sweet inside that the mold cannot grow anymore because it's too sweet, too much osmotic pressure, and it's like on honey, nothing can grow. The same idea.
So is the mold attacks naturally, or you make it happen?
And that's the reason why Sauternes is a good region for sweet wine is it attacks naturally. When everything goes right, you start mid-late September, when the berry is naturally sweet already.
So the grape has now been attacked by the mold.
Yes, and actually the berry is alive, and the berry trying to defend, to react to this invasion. And the result of this fight is a big increase. We could say it's not increase, it's an amplification of the quantity of potential aroma in the grapes. At the end of the war, the shrunk berry is 100 times richer in aroma than a regular berry of the same grape.
And by this time it looks like a rotten raisin or something, does it?
Yes, it's good. It looks like more, I would say, a raisin with rather bluish, brownish bluish color rather than the regular brown color of the raisin.
So should we talk a bit about the bottle? Because the bottle is always white and clear, right?
It's the way to make the difference most of the time. It's not 100%, but most of the time the Sauternes bottle is an extra white bottle. It means it's really, transparent.
Yes.
It has no greenish effect. It's really completely white.
And is that to show off this beautiful golden color?
Yes, it's to show the genuine color. It's the same quality of a glass used for expensive cognacs.
Yeah,
so
okay.
The same
for
idea.
the same reason, right?
For the same reason. So it's to show something precious. This wine ages very well.
Yeah.
You know, a good Sauterne is 50 years, no problem. And it's really a wine we do enjoy in France on special occasion with a small group of very dear friends or close member of your family, because this feeling of something precious goes with the quality and the depth of the connection, the relation you have with people.
And to call it a dessert wine, because I know you drink it also with foie gras.
Yes, a dessert wine. It comes from actually the British culture, where British people drink a lot of wine and they still want to drink for dessert. What we do in France is we have it as an aperitif, because before anything,
before the meal starts.
Because it's very convenient, because it has a very strong relaxing effect, like a glass of whiskey, but not so much alcohol. And by the way, it will calm down your appetite, because you will have a lot of sugar that will go straight to your blood and send a strong message to your body that you shouldn't rush too much on crackers and aperitif stuff before the meal is really actually starting. But you really have to taste the wine. You have a very strong flavor of candied grapefruit, passion fruit, pineapple, that will stay on your palate, on your tongue forever. Because this wine is not only sweet, but very concentrated, very intense in flavor. It's a lot of information, those intense flavor. You have a lot of concentration, so it kind of distracts your brain for any other information.
It seemed to entertain the whole palate when I took my sip now.
So, in order to choose a proper food, you have to choose some food that is very strong in flavor at all. Otherwise, it will disappear with this so intense wines. You can be audacious in your choice of food and wine matching with food that would destroy other wines because they are too intense. So strong seafood, spicy food,
Curries,
for example, Thai food, Sichuanese
I would
food.
never ever have
It's
thought to
really
combine
the new fashion to enjoy those wines.
Beyond Bordeaux's world-class wines, the region holds another treasure, the medieval village of Cognac. Since the 17th century, the world's best brandies have been painstakingly distilled and aged here to extract the very best from the Ugni Blanc grapes. Bordeaux is a diverse, beautiful region that I find fascinating. A mix of intriguing historical treasures and insights into the art of wine and joie de vivre. Whether you're a wine connoisseur or delving into the topic for the first time, Bordeaux is a destination well worth exploring.